Welcome to another episode of Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Ride Network, your home of the anti-establishment movement in this country. With me, as always, Jack Fairchilds.
Hey, Chris, we're happy to have you back, but you didn't leave me high and dry last week. You
Yep.
you did send in a McDaniel,
No,
and we had
sent,
Cambridge
I sent
McDaniel's
in
America.
the better McDaniel. My son co-hosted last week. If those of you that did not get a chance to watch that, it really is interesting. He did a great job. If you get a chance, go back to last week and you'll see really his first show ever. And to think that he's only 18 years old and was able to do that is made me a very proud dad to say the least. And Jack, you did a good job with him as well. Some good banter, some good questions, and
Yeah,
he seemed to answer them like a professional.
he did. I think some of yours rubbed off on him, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he did get on one of our broadcasts years ago when we were doing the right side together.
Well, he
But it was
did.
just a cry.
No, 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 no. This is a different world here. That was first of all, that was radio. And
hmm
second of all, he was just a baby. So it was his first real world reasonable
Yeah.
interview, I suppose, outside of baseball and things of that nature. But I was really proud of him, and like I said, if you get a chance, go back, watch him. He thinks he wants to be in politics one day. I
You
don't.
trying to talk him out of
Well, I not necessarily. I'm a bit torn because I know how sweet he is and how kind he is, and I know I don't want the world to kick him around unnecessarily. That's the only thing, and politics has a way of really leaving scars.
Yeah,
I don't
it
want to see
does.
my son scarred. I want to see him whole. But then again, I want to see good people run because Lord knows we have enough rotten eggs in office right now. So
Yeah.
I'm a bit torn about that. Now, with all that said, this has been one of those weeks. No stories were clearly dominating the news, with the exception of that tragedy up there with the school shooting. We'll talk about that later in the show. But we also saw quite a bit of interest in what Trump is attempting to do now in Washington, D.C. And you've heard the stories. First of all, you've got ICE agents roaming the streets. Second of all, he's literally taking control, if you will, of the Washington, D.C. police force, thereby making him essentially Donald Trump police captain or police chief. That's a cool title. And you think, well, how can that be? Here's a cool bit of information for all of you. As president, he also served as president of the D.C. School Board.
I did not know that
Yeah,
though.
it's a cool fact. There's your cool fact of the day.
hmm
And you say, well, how can that be? DC is a city. DC is its own separate city with home rule. No, it's not. No, it's not. And I'm kind of sick of the DC politicians even saying that because DC has never been a city of home rule. And the Congress has allowed it some degree of control. But if you look in the Constitution, there's a clause there, an article there, that clearly gives the federal government power over that district. It's not the same as if they sent federal troops to Alabama or to Michigan. That is a federal city. It's a federal protectorate, if you will. And pursuant to the Constitution, Trump has every right to take the actions that he's taken. Now, here's a bit of a history lesson about how he took the action and why he took the action. D.C. is somewhat rotten. Now, I know, not just Congress, not just the politicians. Um, there's a lot of crime in DC. And while it is accurate that crime has been decreasing there slowly over the years, it's still 25% higher than most major cities. So let's not lose track of that. You can have a reduction in crime in a spot and have it still be an outlier when it comes to crime and corruption, especially violent crime. DC has an awful lot of violent crime. So Trump decides, you know what, enough of this, let's clean the city up. And you would think that he had completely torn the Constitution and to pieces, when in fact he was simply using a provision in the Constitution that enabled him to take authority via congressional action. Now, that's the rub, via congressional action. The president can't simply act in D.C. without Congress giving him some authority to act in
hmm
D.C., but Congress has done that. It's called the Home Rule Act of 1973. We call it Section 40 in the law. You ever heard of Section 40?
I have not.
Obscure. It's
Yeah, it's
obscure. It
very
really is.
obscure.
Let me tell you this. Why it's so obscure? Guess how many times it's been used in all the world's history?
Zero?
This is the first time.
That's
This
what I
is how
figured.
obscure this federal provision is. Section 740 of the Home Rule Act. And this is the way it works. So we're clear about what's happening and what's not happening. And I want to once again prove to you that Trump is not acting like a tyrant here. He's acting pursuant to a law in black and white. So all this stuff about him being authoritarian and about him being a dictator, he's following the law.
Yeah.
So what's the law here? Here's what it says. The president first has the right, pursuant to that Section 740, to declare an emergency. That's kind of the rub, isn't it? What is an emergency? What is not an emergency? Well, the act doesn't define that. So he's given great deference by the courts, and now he determines what an emergency is. Here, he's determined there's an emergency there with rising violent crime and things of that nature. It kind of makes sense. It's not the classical emergency, but it's an emergency nevertheless. Number two, the act says you can do this, Mr. President, for 48 hours. That's his time limitation. Unless, of course, the act says he writes a letter to Congress explaining why he needs more time than 48 hours.
Yeah.
He's done that. So check this out. He checked every single legal box. That's not the act of a tyrant. He's following the law. This is where it gets interesting. After he checks that box and writes the letter to Congress, then he has 30 days. And that's it. At the end of 30 days, before those orders can be maintained, that is, he's federalized the police force. Before they can be maintained, Congress has to pass a resolution.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Congress probably isn't going to pass that
No.
resolution. So remember, we have checks and balances here. He's not acting unconstitutionally. He's acting within the law. And we also know the window of action is only about 30 days now because Congress is not going to act. Now, he's done this, and guess what's happened? Crime has been reduced. You got to be kidding me. So the president, acting as a police chief, takes action that he has the right to take via congressional authority, and it actually worked. It wasn't a blue ribbon panel. It wasn't a commission on crime. It wasn't a community prayer service. He just took action, and crime was reduced. There's something to be said there because Democrats have had control of that city for a long, long time, and they couldn't do what he did in 12 days. So not a major homicide, not a single homicide in the last 12 days. That's a first for that city in a long, long time. Now, here's where things get interesting because the liberals naturally take the Washington thing, which they don't have an argument for.
Yeah.
And they declare that, oh my goodness, he's going to do this all over the place. I don't know. Now, granted, I think he's talking about taking some action in cities like Detroit and Baltimore and Chicago, but the law doesn't give him the authority to do that, at least not in the traditional Section 740 sense, and I'll get to that in a second. Well, I'll go ahead and cover it. The reason the 740 thing makes sense is because D.C. Congress is given the power to control D.C. exclusively. It's called plenary power, which is all-encompassing. Okay, that same pathway to control Chicago doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
That same pathway to control Detroit or wherever, San Francisco, doesn't exist. So if Trump tries to take action there, he has to use different pathways. One would be the Insurrection Act.
Mm-hmm.
That's a federal law. The problem there is that usually that's almost because of governor's request when that occurs, and that's when somebody isn't enforcing a federal law.
Mm-hmm.
Federal law that's been passed, signed into law, and is being ignored, or whatever the case may be, or theoretically acts of open insurrection. We haven't seen that, but could one day, I suppose. At that stage, the president certainly has the prerogative to control, if you will, and send the National Guard in for those instances.
I got a question on that. So, because you mentioned if they're ignoring federal law, could cities that, declare themselves sanctuary cities harboring illegal immigrants in this country, could that fall under that classification?
Probably not, and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to that in a second. Here's the reason. Because your argument is sound on its face, but remember, cities and states specifically, have their own unique sovereignty under our system. And state institutions like sheriff's departments cannot be forced by Congress to actively enforce federal law. They sometimes do because they choose to.
Yeah.
But if a state were to say, look, stand down, don't help them, that's permissible. We talked about this years ago. It's called the anti-commandeering doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of cases right on point. I think one's Prince versus U.S., but a couple of these cases are right on point. What it essentially means is if we in Mississippi would have been really upset about some enactment President Obama would have pushed through, and President Obama would have sent ICE, not ICE. He would have used ICE like that. Say he would have sent the FBI or someone down here to enforce one of his new rules that violated our principles.
Yeah.
We could have told our people to stand down. Now, we can't obstruct. There's a difference, right?
Yeah.
You can't forcibly obstruct or arrest, but you can stand down. So that's permissible.
Mm-hmm.
You can stand down. And I think that's what you're going to see in some of these municipalities as we move through this. Here's where things get really interesting and dynamic, because we know if he's so inclined to use the Insurrection Act, he could send troops in at that stage. But that's almost always at the request of a governor, right? Number two, federal task forces can still be sent in, but he couldn't militarize the police the way he militarized in D.C. That's the first distinction. In D.C., he literally militarized the police department.
Yeah.
Well, roughly. It's a pseudo-militarization, but it happened, right?
Yeah.
He cannot, under our enactments, under our Constitution, do that in Chicago.
Okay.
They have their own police department. That's a state issue. That's a city issue. He does not have the authority there. Can he send in the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, or ICE to operate in those cities? Yes. Yes. Does Chicago have to participate in that?
No.
No. See the distinction?
Yeah.
And conservatives, some will say, well, that's awful. That's actually the beauty of our system.
Yeah, I'd rather have the states and have their own power.
It's the beauty of our system.
Yeah.
God knows if there was a strong Democrat in office, what he might try to do with troops around this country to conservative places, right? So we have to be really careful about that. So you have all of these issues surrounding what's happening, and there's a couple of things that are clear. He can act in Washington almost without limit, with the exception of 30 days. That he has a limitation there. He will not be able to do that in these other cities without significant court fights, and they probably will not prevail in those cities. That's just the reality of it. Now let's talk about something super uncomfortable, because we want law and order, don't we?
We do.
I mean, I want law and order.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am sick of these inner cities being governed by Democrats and watching them almost burn to the ground every Saturday night because they can't control their people.
Exactly.
Right? And there's a lot of reasons as to why that might be the case. From a Democrat standpoint, it seems to me they coddle more than they protect. It seems to me they make excuses and justifications for criminal activity more than they condemn. Have you noticed that?
I have.
And it seems to me they elect or appoint prosecutors that are more concerned about political prosecutions than they are about law and order.
Yeah.
And so naturally the criminals, they're run control over parts of these cities. Chicago is a great example. And this conversation is going to be incredibly sensitive. So you got to bear with me here.
Yeah.
Be careful what you say too, because they'll come after you. They'll cut off your electricity like they tried to do yesterday. All right? Now, hear me out here. I happen to love the city of Chicago. I know you do as well.
Oh, it's my favorite city.
And I know a lot of Southerners think, why would you go to Chicago? What do you see in Chicago? It's until you've been there. I worked there a lot. I've worked there for years. And until you've been there on that upper north side and seen the beauty of that place, the beauty of those people,
The wonderful food,
the art, the sports, the lake,
Yeah.
the temperature. September, I probably shouldn't tell you this because I don't want you to go in September. There's not a more beautiful city in this country in September than Chicago, Illinois. There, I've said it. And you say, what about all the crime? It's really not bad at all north of the river. Basically, if you get up the north side, it's suburban averages. The same averages as you see in the suburban areas. You get on the far south side, that's a problem. You get on the west side, that's a problem. So if you want to go to Chicago and enjoy yourself, do not go to the west side.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. When I first went up there years and years ago, this is when they still had phone books. Remember phone books?
I do remember.
What an
phone books.
antiquated thing that is now. There used to be, for all you young people out there, you would get a phone book every so often, I guess once yearly.
I think it was either once a year or once every 6 months.
And it had all the numbers in your little community and other little communities around your community. And get this, you had to sort through it alphabetically and find who you were trying to call, and bam, it was right there in the book. Do you remember those days?
I do. I also remember the first time I got a phone book with my name in it.
Well,
it was exciting.
Well, here's the thing. In the phone books in Chicago, it would say specifically, if you're new to the city, do not go to Cabrini Green. It's over the west side. It's a dangerous place. It literally said, You will get shot if you go. There will be no protection here if you go to that area. And I thought, wow, well, that's a good idea. I'm going to stay clear of Cabrini Green, the far south side, far west side. And I learned over the years that I can be perfectly safe in a big city as long as you know the area of the big city to
Hmm.
be in. Unfortunately, that's a lot of our American cities. So we probably shouldn't stereotype the entire city of Chicago when we say that it's violent.
Hmm.
It's not violent. Fractions of it are violent. Now,
Yeah.
here's where the conversation gets tough because it involves issues of race. You better put that phone down, get focused here. They're going to take you, they're going to, your last show. Issues of race. Um, Inglewood, Austin, Garfield Park. These are black neighborhoods. And that's where the crime is. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not trying to get into the cause of it. There are a million excuses either way and a million reasons to blame either way. That's what the crime is. 80%, 80% of murder victims in Chicago last year, African American. Shot by African Americans. And you Democrats claim you care.
Yeah.
You claim that you care, and yet you have this war on your streets that we know exactly where the geography is. We know exactly who the perpetrators are, but we can't talk about it because somehow it's politically incorrect. Somehow it's wrong to discuss race in correlation to crime. But the numbers don't lie, and the numbers are just math. Right now, young black men, ages 15 to 34 in Chicago, the highest risk for homicide in the entire United States. Those rates are dozens of times higher than those in the white communities. What's going on? The white communities, relatively safe. The black communities, deadly, dangerous. And you Democrats still claim you care about those people. You still care about those neighborhoods. You haven't shown a propensity or an inclination to care about those neighborhoods since you were elected. You don't care because you allow that stuff to occur. And we can't talk about it because if we do, you sling nasty names at us. But the
Hmm.
math is the math. This is a failure of democratic politics, a failure.
It 100%
And
is.
so, what you're going to find in these cities is one common thread: Democrat mayors, Democrat council members. And in every city where you have a predominantly black population, you're going to have a disproportionately high crime rate. And also, they also disproportionately vote Democrat. I wish there was a way to break that cycle. I wish there was a way to make sure that Democrats uh, held in some degree of responsibility for what was occurring here. They seem to always want to blame us or blame Trump or blame Republicans when the failures are taking place in their own cities. And that infuriates me. It really does. But the point of the matter of all that, whatever reason for that disparity, and I realize there's a lot of reasons for the disparity, it's occurring, it's happening, but that doesn't necessarily mean that federal troops should be sent there to quell it. Change the leadership of the city,
Amen.
fix the police department, enforce parental responsibility, make sure these parents are held responsible for some of these gangbangers when they're 12 and 13 years old leaving the home,
Yeah.
right? And then, by George, take responsibility for your actions and quit blaming the police. That's another story I've got. When I'm up there traveling, I have a lot of friends, or used to years ago, that were police officers. We communicated all the time, just a lot of different things. They knew I was a lawyer, and we were just acquaintances. Do you know? He told me one time, or one of them did. He says everybody hates us here. He didn't mean the North Side.
Yeah.
He said everybody hates us here. He goes, you know, here we are busting our chops, doing what we can to make the city safe, and they hate us here. That's an extension of Democratic leadership,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, it
Isn't
is.
it? I mean, haven't they attacked the police officers enough for trying to do one of the most difficult jobs in the world?
Yeah,
They don't pay them well. They kick them around. When they do have to do something that's even remotely problematic, they throw them under the bus, don't they?
they do.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's crazy.
So the point is that you have all these issues that are very complicated, but no one wants to talk about what could be driving those issues. So let me just wrap all this up. Whether the crime is bad in the western side of Chicago, that does not necessarily mean that federal troops should be sent to quell it. That might get me in trouble. Let me explain where I'm coming from. Federalism. Are you a conservative?
I am.
One of our core things that we believe in is federalism.
Mm-hmm.
States are sovereign, communities sovereign.
Mm-hmm.
The feds have their powers, the states have their powers. One of the core powers that a state has is police powers. You know that?
Yep.
If we interfere too much and create too much bad precedent, am I the only one that has a fear of what a Democrat might do in that same situation?
No, you shouldn't be.
Will he declare a climate emergency and move troops in down here in the South? Will he declare some sort of other imaginary Democrat emergency? And I mean, do we really want the presidency where the federal government is sending troops all over the country?
No.
I mean, I get law and order, and I want law and order. And I think ICE should do its job, and the FBI should do its job. But it's one thing to do that. It's another to send the National Guard into the western side of Chicago, isn't it?
It is. I mean, and it's a very, I mean, don't get us wrong. We support President Trump.
Absolutely.
But, there are steps too far, no matter how much you support somebody or how much you believe in them. And yes, we want a safer Chicago. We want a safer name violent Democrat controlled city that you want. We want them to be safer. But at the same time, we also understand that as much as you may trust President Donald Trump, he's not always going to be president. And at some point, a Democrat is going to be elected.
There is one interesting political thing unfolding here. By the way, how much time do we have before a break, y'all? 5? Listen to this. Interesting. I love the approach he's taking via law and order.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact he's cracking down in D.C., which he has every right to in D.C. And if he wants to use federal agencies to move in and to sweep up illegals in Chicago, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
We're talking merely about the militarization of a police force, which he doesn't have the authority to do. Mm-hmm. But there's something bigger in play here. And this might be the genius of Trump, because I don't always understand some of the things he says or why he says them, the timeliness of it, but a lot of times it works out, right? Midterms are coming up. Midterms.
Yep.
And Democrats simply can't control crime. And if you poll people and they're trying to be safe and they want to be safe, crime and public safety, that is ranking way up there right now among moderates and even some Democrats. I think he's getting ahead of this midterm issue by rattling the law and order saber and trying to prove that Republicans, which is true, which is accurate, Republicans are better on law and order than Democrats. Look, I mean, don't take my word for it. Look at any city in the country, and you'll see that spelled out. Republicans are much better on law and order. This might be a stroke of political genius we're watching right now, because if he times this just right, there'll be a sentiment of people, of moderates, that will come to the Republican side and probably help us pick up a red wave. Have you considered that?
I didn't until you just pointed it out. I mean, in that type of strategy, it's pretty smart, and it definitely could tip the scales in the favor of conservative. We hope conservative Republicans.
This is why I think that's what he's doing. I think it's brilliant, and I think Newsom now is trying to get ahead of it. Friday, this guy in California, he acts so tough online.
Oh, he does.
But he has soft hands.
You can tell. I mean, there's something about him just tells you. Yeah.
The guy's never had a hard day's work in his life. He's got soft hands.
Probably never been punched in the face, never been in a
scrap. Well, I wouldn't. I mean, it's not that you're advocating for that, are you?
No, I'm just saying that, growing up, most of us have had a scrap or two.
Be real careful. That guy will, he'll send troops after you. He'll send the California Highway Patrol here to get you for that threat. Here's the thing. He's soft. He's always been soft, but he's picked up on the social media wizardry that Trump's always displayed. Now, Newsom's not writing that stuff.
No, he's not.
He found a couple of comedians over in California, and he's paying them big money to write that thing, and the press is loving it because it's funny and it's biting and it's witty. He's none of those things.
And it's kind of a spoof of Trump.
He's none of those things. Mm-hmm. He's none of those things.
Yeah.
He's a handsome guy with a good haircut with soft hands. And you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Right? That's fine. He was elected governor. More power to you. But to be a tough guy now after all of this time, nobody's falling for that. But last Friday, he decides, look, I'm going to show you what I can do. So he then starts talking about cracking down on crime in San Francisco, cracking down on crime in LA, right?
Hmm.
Now, all of a sudden, it's been out there staring him in the face all these years. He's done nothing. Now he wants to get ahead of it and crack down on this terrible crime issue. You see what he's doing? He's starting to recognize Trump is going to win this fight on law and order. And if he doesn't somehow try to find a way to at least meet Trump and do something Trump's
Piggyback.
doing,
Yeah.
he's mimicking. He's basically copying Trump
Yeah.
at this rate. And what do they say about flattery? You know, think
It-
about it.
It's everywhere.
Imitation.
Yeah.
Imitation. No, the imitation is the
Most
sincere form of flattery. He's imitating President Trump now, which is fascinating because the crime that's there was created in large part because of policies like his. He coddles drug use in San Francisco. He coddles homelessness in San Francisco.
Mhm.
You look up and down the California coastline, and you're going to find elements in their cities where lawlessness prevails. He's allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
But then Trump takes one action in D.C., and all of a sudden Newsom is John Wayne, right?
Yeah.
See, Donald Trump's even making Newsom look tough.
And that's hard to
That's
do.
hard.
That's hard to do.
That's hard to do. But it goes to show there is a political calculation here, and I think it's really smart. If Trump is moving this direction, recognizing the midterms are going to be huge for us, Newsom better get out in front because he's about to get blasted.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing. Isn't it great, though? What if other Democrat mayors decided to actually, I don't know, enforce the law? Wouldn't that be cute?
It would go a long way to improving things, but we know that most of them won't.
But consider, once again, just the threat that he's made to potentially send troops into Chicago. I bet you right now I bet they're getting serious about crime in Chicago.
Oh, man,
Have you noticed about that?
You got to crack down. They got to crack down. I mean, it's a problem.
No, all of a sudden. I think it's interesting that he's controlling the Democrats even when he's not even trying to control the Democrats. I've never seen a party so obsessed with a man and so angry all the time. It's weird. Now, don't get me wrong. No president's ever perfect. And I'll be the first to tell you, whether it's Reagan or Trump, they're going to make mistakes from time to time. That's the nature of the office, and we're here to hold any of them accountable. But to claim that everything he does is just inherently wrong, that's weird. That's weird. I mean, you think about D.C. If I'm the mayor in D.C. right now, I should be celebrating this move. My people are safer.
Yeah.
Right? He's only going to be here for 18 more days. It's brilliant. Celebrate it. No, they can't celebrate it because it happened to be him as opposed to someone else.
Yeah, if a Democrat were in the White House and had done the exact same thing, thank you for the help, Mr. President.
Fine. Yeah. That's something how that works. Politics is killing this country. And I've never seen a party so lost, so disjointed, and so confused as the Democrats. They don't hold positions except one. They've got one position. We hate Trump.
Yep.
That's their position. And they can't even agree on regular common sense agenda items when you have to tell them how to speak. You saw that memo.
I did. We talked about it with your son.
You've got think tanks that are sending memos out saying, listen, maybe you should use this word instead of this word because here you sound wacky.
Yeah.
And here you sound relatively normal. But it goes to show how far they've gone off to the left. Meanwhile, the moderates in their party, if there are any left, I don't know that there are, they seem to be okay with it so long as they hold the coalition together. But how do you hold crazy in your tent? They have one thing in common. They hate Donald Trump.
Yep.
I don't know, man. It's disgusting when you see that much hate.
It is, but it's sadly become so normal that I roll my eyes when I see it now. I don't even give the Trump hatred near the amount of attention I once did because it's their go-to card every
time. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break here in a second. When we come back, I want to move past the Section 740 stuff and the Trumps take over the world, beat troops, make to the liberals. I want to talk about the school shooting there in Minneapolis and talk about how some people reacted to that, how probably they should have reacted to that, and also try to figure out what could be causing this. We've had 140 school shootings just in the last little while. People don't realize that. It's an epidemic that's new. There's always been guns, but now we're having school shootings. So it's not the guns causing the school shootings.
No, it's not.
It's something else there. I want to talk about that when we get back. So first a commercial. We'll be right back.
Escape to Pearl River Resort.
Welcome back to Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Ride Network. We spent the first 30 minutes of today's show going over why it is that Trump is not a tyrant, why he's not being authoritarian, and why he was actually just following the law. We also talked about the fact that he threatened to send troops into Detroit, Chicago, and or Baltimore, that all of a sudden reforms were being made. Even Gavin Newsom has decided to be John Wayne all of a sudden, which is really, really interesting for such a pretty fella. Such a pretty fella. Anyway, one of the things that frustrates me about human nature, and I think even my own human nature, is that once we see a certain type of crime being committed, the first time we hear about it, it's alarming.
Mm-hmm.
The second, third, fourth, fifth time, it's alarming. 60 times in, it doesn't feel as alarming. There's something about us as humans, we try to rationalize and work through terrible, tragic events, right?
Yeah.
The sad thing about this country is these school shootings are becoming way too prevalent. And now you see them pop up, and where we all used to just gasp in terror, it looks like it's another news day. We're not supposed to, that's not right. These are children.
Yeah.
These are as bad. This is as, if you want evidence of a society in decay, evidence of a country that's falling to pieces, or has been for 10 years.
Yeah.
Think about the type of maniac that would go into a school and shoot it up. And where it used to be, you almost never heard of it, then it became somewhat infrequent. It's becoming frequent. That should force this society to look in the mirror and ask, what are we doing? What are our kids doing? Where are the parents? What is happening to societal responsibility? And this happened last Wednesday, right there at that Catholic school there in Minneapolis. This guy is 23 years old. His name is Robert Westman. And he grabs a few weapons. He goes into this school. They're in mass, evidently, praying, and just begins to shoot. And we don't know exactly why yet. I think I sense it was probably anti-Catholic, anti-Christian.
I think so too.
Right? And I'm sure if it was, it'd be the last thing they report. But had it been, had it been anything else that would have been protected in today's society, it would have been headlines everywhere, right? I hate to get into that. I hate to make any of this political because it's so distasteful. But he goes in there and he kills an 8-year-old boy. He kills a 10-year-old girl. He injures what, 18?
Yeah.
And why? Because he just felt resentful. Because he felt like he had to strike back at society. 23 years old. Domestic terrorism, possibly. Hate crime, certainly. This is the 140th school shooting in the United States in just the past few years. How do you explain that? The Pope Leo, a Chicago Pope, he described the tragedy, and he called for an end to what he described as a pandemic of arms. Just shut up.
Yeah.
Just shut up. It's a pandemic, all right, of moral crisis, not of arms. It helped. I mean, I didn't see the Pope's speech. I found that quote and it infuriated me because the Pope is supposed to be someone who talks about morality. And if his position is morality, how can you blame an inanimate object?
It's crazy because, again, they don't want to talk about one of the serious causes here because, again, Robin was Robert. That's a trans individual who switched names, and let's just go ahead and say it's a mental illness. And instead of calling that out what it is and just doing the liberal thing of, oh, you live your truth, which it's not your truth, but by pushing that out there, again, this is somebody in pain that we just say, go do that.
Here's the thing. Clearly, the guy was mentally disturbed. A lot of issues in his life. We're not sure what all those are yet. I'm assuming that once they go through his computer and his manifesto and his comments and posts, they'll give us a breakdown. But I want to talk about that in a minute because there's so much more to this story than simply a one lone guy who happened to be
Mhm.
sexually confused. There's a lot more to the story than that because it's happening far too often.
Yes.
And it's happening when people aren't transgendered.
Yep.
It's impacting people who are apparently normal, but they just feel so much hate and resentment they have to take it out on other like-minded children. Um, it is it is a pandemic, and it's a tragedy. And I will, to give the Pope the benefit of a doubt, I will go back and review his whole speech because I hope the way it was reported, he wasn't simply talking about the pandemic of arms. Pandemic of violence? Yeah.
Yeah.
Pandemic of immorality?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pandemic of criminality and a lack of self-control? Yeah. That's not the arms' fault, is it?
Shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So here's the real question, right? Why? And this is another part of the show that's going to upset everybody out there that doesn't think rationally. Because if you think rationally, you see that things run in patterns. And you see that patterns are developed based on the population as a whole. And you see the population as a whole changing its belief systems over the last 60 years. And how the change in those belief systems creates random acts of terror and violence. You didn't see this in 1957, did you?
No, you did
I
not.
mean, there may have been one outlier somewhere of some lunatic, but not to the extent we see it now. So the question for us, for you, for conservatives as a whole is, what's causing this? Why do school shootings happen? And this is not to politicize this. I thought it was disgusting. Every time something like this happens, politicians try to politicize it. This is an 8-year-old, a little boy and a 10-year-old little girl that died.
Yep.
That should not ever be politicized. That's just wrong. And the first thing they did was hold press conferences. And I'm so sick of the Democrats. We're tired of your prayers and tired of your thoughts.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
You know, the thing is, thoughts and prayers go a long way. Thoughts and prayers once kept this society together. Maybe we need more thoughts and prayers, not less.
Yep.
Maybe it's the lack of thoughts and prayers that are causing the violence in the first place, right? But then they stand up there and they get sanctimonious. No more thoughts and prayers, really gun control. Yet nobody can tell me a single element of gun control that would have prevented this from happening. Chicago has gun control. That western side we talked about earlier, where all that crime's being committed, you think that 13-year-old can legally possess a firearm?
He cannot.
And yet he's killing another 14-year-old, isn't he?
Yep, with a firearm.
So gun control's that's the first thing you nitwits. It's never going to work. Ever. Because the criminals are going to find ways to get their hands on guns every time. So instead of just trying to attack the inanimate object, how about we focus on what the changes could have been over the last 60, 70, 80 years that are creating monsters in our system? It's going to piss everybody off. It's just the reality of it. When you have a child, this will be our last show. That child needs a mom and a dad. I'm not saying a mom can't be a great parent by herself. I'm not saying a dad can't be a great parent by himself. What does that child really need, though? Really need a mom and a dad. He needs someone to have unconditional love with, like a mom, and someone to have unconditional security with, like a dad. He needs a balance in his or her life. And we don't have that anymore. The collapse of the moral order and the family is causing a lot of confusion in these kids. Look, man, I'm a sinner. Jack, I know you're a sinner. There's a lot of sinners out there. That's a joke. And we don't expect perfection, not in couples, not in moms and dads, not in families. There's no such thing as perfection. But I tell you what, if you take God out of the equation and discipline out of the equation and responsibility out of the equation and the classroom, and then you wonder why your kids are lost. And you may think as a liberal, well, religion is so antiquated. It's so horrible. It just controls people's minds. Well, I'm going to tell you something. There's another side to that equation. What else does it do? It gives people hope and love. It makes them see their fellow man as something worthy of respect.
Yep.
It makes us feel positive when we give. There are 1,000 more positive things about religion than there are negative. And yet you take a couple of negatives you see and you pound on it, and you pound on it, and you drive a wedge between religion and humans. And then you wonder why humans behave like barbarians. One more thing. I know this is so, unusual for you liberals, but people that worship fear an afterlife of disappointment. In other words, if you don't live a good life, there's punishment on the other side, right?
That is correct.
I mean, granted, different denominations handle that differently, and if you're saved, and you get to go to heaven, and that's wonderful. But the consequences of a bad life, the consequences of bad decisions, the consequences of rejection of Jesus results in what?
Eternal damnation.
Punishment. Something to be said about that. You may think it's strange and burdensome, but it keeps people squared away on the straight and narrow for the most part. Love and hope and charity and a fear that you don't want to disappoint.
Gives you a moral compass.
A North Star. It's gone now. It's gone now. And we wonder why our kids are acting this way. Number two, video games are violent, the movies are violent, the TV is violent. Now, I'm not saying ban that. I know a lot of people say ban it. No, government action is not the answer. Government, you can no more get rid of violence than they can get rid of guns by trying to control it. You can't. But parents that are there enforcing what a child can watch, what he can do. And if a parent allows the child to play a video game, how about sitting there over his shoulder saying, this ain't real.
Yeah.
This is a game, right?
You can't do this in real life.
Parents have ways of allowing kids to expose themselves to that type of imagery over time as they age, but then also be there for them to support them and say, look, this is just a video game. This is not real life. But if you lock one in a room for 12 hours and mom and dad never comes in there, and you turn the internet loose on his head, on his mind, and you wonder why he's addicted to pornography, and you wonder why he's trying to shoot things up, it's because the parents weren't raising the child.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to parental responsibility in this country? My God, we don't expect kids to be perfect, and sometimes parents are perfect, and the kids are still imperfect. But I tell you this, more times than not, if you have a role in your child's life, the kid's going to be okay.
Yeah.
He's going to make mistakes. He may have that drink too early. He may roll a yard one night. He may do something crazy, but chances are, the odds are, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And who would you rather trust with that child to raise him, to teach him lessons? The government?
No.
Or a mom and a dad?
A mom and a dad all day.
So we glorify violence. There's no one there at home to explain to the child what this is all about and why violence should not be glorified. And then churches and civic groups and others are told to get lost, right?
Yep.
Lonely boys with no purpose, they become dangerous boys. Always understand that. Men grow up and they have one of two options, it seems, right? You have good men out there, and we thank God for those good men because they stand to defend this whole world against the bad men. The psychopaths, the sociopaths, they're out there. Those that don't know right from wrong, those that didn't have a mom or dad, those that may already be mentally disturbed. Thank God for good men, right? But it seems now we're being outnumbered because society, in this sense, is crumbling. The problem is when it crumbles, no government, no law, no regulation, no reform can bring it back together. So these are symptoms of a greater problem that we're having. You may be an atheist or agnostic, fine, but at least concede there is value in a system that teaches love your neighbor like you love yourself.
Yeah.
There's value in that system. So why not embrace it again, at least for the sake of peace and prosperity in our time? Y'all's ways hadn't been working.
Yeah. You definitely have seen us move away from the church as a nation. That has opened the door for this type of immorality. We've seen, a move away from things that we once considered to be a mental health issue, and we try to normalize that stuff. In addition to moving away from religion, we can look at other reasons why we're seeing this become a more common occurrence. And when you start to do that, you realize it's not the guns, it's us.
Right.
It's us as a society.
Well, let's list these things then, okay? Collapse of the moral order, cultural glorification of violence, loss of faith in community.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, we didn't get into community. What that means to lose community. You know, even if you have a mom and a dad that aren't always available,
Mm-hmm.
say dad's not around.
Yeah.
In tight-knit communities, sometimes others will come to the aid of that child.
Yeah.
We don't have those communities anymore.
Not at all.
They're being degraded. Now, we have online communities. God help us there. Most online communities are somewhere I wouldn't want to walk at night, would you?
No.
Okay, so we're losing that. What's the other? Failure at mental health and discipline. A lot of these kids, you see early on there's problems, but we lack the awareness and or the ability to get in front of it and control it. That's a mental health crisis in this country, caused in part by the loss of family and the loss of community, right? Things we just talked about. The mental health crisis is a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, this is me just pontificating, speculating. You know, if you go through life, right, and you're a young man or a young woman, and you already feel hopeless.
Yeah.
You don't feel loved. You compare your own failures based on what you see others portraying on Facebook and social media. So you feel like a loser.
Mm-hmm.
You start being enraged and angry. You feel like the world's against you. You feel like there's nothing you can do to change it. And no one's there to tell you otherwise. The natural result is you strike out in some form or fashion. It might be a drug use, it might be shooting, it might be some other assault or whatever the case may be, but you strike out. You got to reach these kids before they strike out. And the problem is we're not. And I'm not suggesting that's a governmental role because God knows government can barely deliver the mail.
Yeah.
Right? But these are complex issues that have to be solved. Churches are good at that. Social communities are good at that. Civic groups are good for that. Volunteers are good for that. We need more outreach from that perspective. And then lastly, this whole debate about access versus use of guns. I'll just say it again. You know, guns have been in American homes for centuries. You know that, right?
Yes.
All right. But school shootings, that's a modern epidemic, isn't it?
Pretty much.
The change isn't the gun. The guns have always been there. It's the kids.
Yep.
It's the kids. And until we address that root cause, doesn't matter if they're black, white, Asian, whatever, until we address that root cause, we're going to still see violence.
Yes,
we
are.
talked about the racial component in Chicago with 80% of those poor guys being African-American.
Mm-hmm.
And the Democrats seem to think that's okay. That bothers me. They make up 29% of the city's population, and they're 80% of the gun deaths.
Wow.
Come on, lefties. What are you doing? Anyway, it fires me up. By the way, no real solutions were offered by anyone after the shooting. Thomas Massey probably came the closest from a perspective of government. He said that the, the Gun-Free School Zones Act that was passed back in 1990, he would repeal that. He'd repeal that. You know, right now, the way that law reads, if you're within 1,000 feet of a school, you're not supposed to have a firearm. And he was suggesting that the great majority of these shootings that are stopped, it's stopped more quickly and more efficiently by a citizen carrying a firearm than it is a police officer carrying a firearm. The reason for that's common sense. The police officers have to respond from great distances.
Yep.
Whereas people that are already there with firearms can respond and stop the shootings as they're occurring. And that's happened 51 times in the past couple of years. Citizens just stopping the shooting themselves. So it's not the gun, it's who holds the gun. It's not the weapon, it's who shoots the weapon. And I prefer good guys with guns.
I do too.
So I think Thomas Massey's probably on to something there, and it's something Congress should look at. Of course, Congress will not look at it because they're more concerned about, fundraisers and cocktail parties than they're actually governing.
Whatever the lobbyist wants this week.
Yeah, the lobbyists don't care much about that.
Yeah, no.
How much time do we have? We're down to about 15 minutes. I could talk about so much, but I do want to talk about something we saw the other day. And Jack, you brought this story to my attention. And I swear I'll never understand how some people perceive some writers and why they can't see through what the writers are attempting to accomplish. Now, there's a writer here in Mississippi that's written an article about term limits. You bought this to me, right?
Yep.
And this writer is a smart enough guy. I don't know how long he's been writing, but it seems like 176 years, doesn't it?
It 100% does.
I mean, I don't remember a day in my life where he wasn't writing. And He's a good writer, and I bet you he's a smart guy. His name is Sid Salter. I have nothing negative at all to say about Sid Salter. But I do know this for an absolute fact. Even his Facebook page once said it. He's a self-proclaimed moderate.
Mm-hmm.
Let me explain what that means in this era. Democrat.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. He's never written a positive word about Reagan or
Nope.
about Bush, right? Never.
Nope.
I've never seen him write a positive word about Trump.
Yeah.
But all the positions he takes seems to ratchet up when it comes to big government.
Mm-hmm.
He loves big government. I'll tell you why in a second. He loves incumbents. I'll tell you why in a second.
Yeah.
You know the answer to that as well. It's not just a moderate inclination. It's who he works for.
Yeah.
Who's he work for?
He works for the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, Mississippi State University.
Yes, sir.
And so, again, not a bad guy, but remember, when he's writing something, don't think this is Uncle Ed that shows your conservative viewpoints. This is the guy that's designed to protect the power of government because he is the power of government. It protects him.
Yeah.
That's the umbrella by which he makes his living. Nothing wrong with that. Seriously. He should defend, I suppose, the folks that got him there. But we shouldn't be fooled by it either.
No.
So when he writes an article here, he says that term limits are a tired gimmick that disempowers voters and weakens Mississippi. Yeah, there's no evidence in the article about that.
No, none
But
whatsoever.
there's a lot of strong opinion. Which I'm fine with that too. I don't expect these short articles to be persuasive arguments all the time. But I'm afraid I don't understand his point unless it simply is to protect incumbency
I think that is his point.
and to protect big government.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny. In one article a few weeks ago, he's lamenting the federal debt being so high. And then he keeps voting for the same people that drove it to these astronomical levels, saying that
Yes.
somehow it helped Mississippi. And
Yep.
he can't seem to understand the disconnect between one and the other.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk about term limits. One of the things about term limits that frustrates me is this, or at least the people that are anti-term limit. There's a cool line they use, and it's an applause line they use.
Yeah.
And it's corny, and it's anti-intellectual, but it's designed to take advantage of the 12-year-old mind.
And disarm people.
It is. It's 12-year-old mind.
Mm-hmm.
My God, we already have term limits. It's when you go to the ballot box.
Yep.
Corny. That's not term limits.
Yeah.
It's cute. I will say that.
Yeah.
It's an applause line for a county fair,
Yeah.
but it's not practical.
No, it's
So
not.
let's talk about term limits. There are basically 30 reasons for term limits. We'll talk about 6 because I have probably, 7 minutes left. First, career politicians. Who among you still believes in career politicians? I want one person with a rational, reasonable mind to tell me how career politicians have been great for this country. Just one.
It's not going to be me.
I want you to tell me how Benny Thompson goes in to the congressional district he serves in Mississippi on a supervisor's salary. And they say the cat's worth millions now,
Mhm.
right? I want to know how that happens because that's a career politician in my mind, right? So they serve not to serve the people. They serve to serve the lobbyists. They serve to serve the leaders. In turn, they get special perks and appointments, right?
Yep.
But it's always us that are struggling and suffering. And we talk about them and we say it's bad, and they always manage to get reelected. And Sid would say, well, that's just the people voting. That's not quite that easy because the people are misinformed because of the disparity in spending power that occurs
Exactly.
with career politicians. And here's how this happens. So if you want to break the career cycle, you have to be for term limits.
I agree.
Number 2, it reduces corruption. As these cats advance in authority and seniority and power, so do the lobbyist money.
Yep.
You'll be surprised at how much more you get from the lobbyist as you rise in the committee chairmanship ascensions, right? If you start down here on the bathroom committee, you're not getting a bunch of checks. By the time you get to the appropriation committee, you're making millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, right? It's a crooked, nasty system, and it's influence peddling. If you want to get rid of the influence peddling, you have to be for term limits. Lastly, number 3, what about just fresh ideas? When these guys come in to get into office, say you're a U.S. Senator,
Mhm.
you may have run in 1968 on Agenda A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Now, Agenda A, B, and C might be your wheelhouse. That might be where you want to be, Agenda A, B, and
Yeah.
C. Meanwhile, your constituency has moved on. And they want D, E, and F, but
Yeah.
you're still stuck on A, B, and C. If you elect new people, these are people that just a few days ago were among the voters, that were working among the voters. They haven't spent their life in D.C. surrounded by fences and security guards and perks and special privileges. These are folks that are out there working with you. They have new ideas. They have fresh ideas. Why wouldn't you want them to represent you as opposed to some old cat that sit there for the last 30 years and knows nothing about the state he once represented? Number 4, this is the other part that's so serious. You think elections are fair in this country? Seriously, you think a challenger has a real fighting chance against a 30-year incumbent?
No.
Do you really?
No.
Come on. They get elected 98% of the time. If there was some degree of fairness, I assure you that number will be much lower. Here's the way it works. That career politician that's made his living raising money on the backs of lobbyists, he has a war chest now.
Mm-hmm.
And that war chest is extensive, millions and millions and millions of dollars. So when he's challenged by anyone, he'll go on TV, direct mail pieces, radio, and he'll rip that challenger to shreds. And then he'll spend the last 2 weeks giving positive TV commercials where the challenger is just struggling to raise money because lobbyists don't give money to challengers. Yeah. No, it's not fair. No, the ballot box isn't fair. The challenger has almost zero chance to win when he announces. There's been one U.S. senator that I can remember ever that actually upset a sitting United States senator in a primary, and that was Mike Lee from Utah, remember?
Yep.
And then we got Cochran in 2014, only to have it stolen 3 weeks later. There's a reason that is. All the money, power, and prestige belongs to the incumbents. No, you don't have the same rights to the ballot box because the money is too substantial. And then how about a couple of more things? How about returning power back to the people?
Yeah.
Is that a problem? Do you mistrust or distrust the American people so much that you can't trust them to be in Congress? Bill Buckley once said, I would trust the first 100 people in the phone book before I would trust the first 100 senators or House members I've met. And I'm the same way. But let's just throw all that out. Ignore it just for a minute. I'm going to wrap this thing up. You're still against term limits because you think you have them already. How's that working out for you? I mean, throw every argument out and let's just come back to one central theme here. Are you ready for change or not? Because the only way to effectuate change is going to be to shake the system. And term limits is the only real way to shake the system. Yep. So if you're fine with the status quo, you be against term limits. That's cute. But just know it's never going to work the way you claim. It's insincere. Nope. It doesn't match the rhetoric. There's not enough money in the world to offset what you're trying to set up. Let's shake it all up. Congress has broken this country. Mm-hmm. We're $38 trillion in debt now because of those nitwits. They have no clue about what they're doing.
None.
Lowest common denominator in the world are Congress critters. And you know that, and I know that. And we keep electing the same ones year in and year out. It has to stop if you're going to turn this country around.
It does. And to me, it's an intellectually dishonest argument to be made when your big smoking gun, your closing line is the one that you're talking about of, well, we already have it at the ballot box, because we don't. Now, I'm sure no term limits serve someone that works for the state pretty well, but the rest of us, it's not. And we need to try to make sure that folks are educated, but that's hard. So to make sure everybody understands why you might need to vote against the incumbent. A lot of folks, and this isn't an insult against anybody, they're living their everyday lives. They're trying to get kids to and from school, to ball games. They don't have time. So they'll go vote for the comfort food, the name they recognize. And that's the problem.
That's all they know. And look, there's nothing wrong with Sid Salter. Nothing wrong with his position. He works for the state. He works for the government. He's trying to protect that.
Yep.
And that's a perfect, to me, that's humanity. But that doesn't mean it's right, because we can protect our little honey hole while the whole world falls apart. Yeah. And eventually it's going to hit our honey hole. $38 trillion in debt. And nobody seems to connect the dots here, that it's the incumbents that are causing that. It's the politicians that have caused.
Not my incumbent. Not my incumbent.
Right. Well, look, guys, this is complicated. We're here. If you really want to drain the debt, we keep hearing that phrase. It ain't happening very quickly.
No, at all.
But if you want to drain the swamp, I can't think of a better way to train at the term limits.
I think it might be the only way.
Might be the only way. So let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's get that term limits initiative passed and bring these cats home. Wouldn't that be fun?
I'm here for it.
Well, guys, listen, thank you for being here today. We had a good time. Anything else you'd like to add before we close?
Chris, it's good to have you back. Hopefully work will slow down enough to where we can get you back for, at least 4 or 5 episodes in a row.
I hope so. I enjoyed it. But look, y'all did great last week, so I'm thinking about just sending Cambridge.
You're just going to change the show to Cambridge McDaniel's America?
Listen, I trust him. I think he'll be great.
He will be great.
I think he'll be great. Well, guys, thank y'all for being here. It means a lot. This has been Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Ride, your home of the anti-establishment movement of this country. We'll see you next time.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented My Pillow to bring you the best pillow in history, My Pillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that My Pillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The My Pillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last My Pillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. My Pillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new My Pillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.